Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Listening to Your Gut podcast. I'm excited for this conversation today because this is something, if you heard of my stories, I shared that I was going to be talking about a particular topic today on the podcast that is, near and dear to my heart because it's something that I've gone through myself. And so I know there are many of you who will resonate with this conversation. And my hope, like always, is that this conversation supports you or it supports someone else that you know might be struggling with similar issues. So what I really wanted to share with you today is how overthinking can impact your gut. Now, you may have already realized that that is something that you're struggling with, or that could be a possibility that overthinking is impacting your gut health. And whether you did or not, I know that I'm here to share with you that yes, it indeed can impact and will impact your gut, especially if you are a chronic overthinker. Look, like myself, I'm raising my hand. That was me. And I'm not above it to say that sometimes I do tend to go down that route even now. I have to check myself before I wreck myself, right? So we're going to talk about all about that today. We're going to talk about 6 ways in which overthinking impacts your gut health and just overall health. And then I'm going to give you 6 suggestions to help decrease the overthinking that you may be currently experiencing, or maybe that's all you know, right? Is that you are just a chronic overthinker. Again, raising my hand because I have been, I know what that feels like. So, but again, like I said, I now know, how to spot that when I do overthink, and I have coping mechanisms. I have ways to support myself so that I stop myself in my tracks when I realize that that's what's happening. So, the other thing I wanted to share with you related to this topic is that, you may be someone who has changed your diet, who has started to, become more physically active. And you might be thinking like, oh my goodness, like I'm doing all the things, right? But you're not seeing the progress, right, that you want, or you're not seeing the changes, you're not seeing the healing occurring for yourself. And what I will say to that is that, I know we don't want to hear this, but it's the truth. And I know I didn't want to hear this, but again, it's the truth, is that healing takes time. It really does. And even if you have made those changes to your nutrition, to your movement, you still have that mindset piece, right? And overthinking is part of that mindset piece. So if you're constantly overthinking what you're eating, or you're constantly fixated on, did I move my body? Or you're just constantly overthinking work, or, your relationship or relationships, that can wreak havoc and will wreak havoc on your overall health, including your gut health. And so I'm, here to remind you that it's not just, this one and done, or I change one thing and I magically start to feel better. For some people, it might just be a mindset piece. Maybe they've got the nutrition and they've got the movement piece under wrap, but it takes a long time for the mindset piece to get in sync and for you to, understand that your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And so I just want to remind you that healing is a long game. We are always healing from something. And that is just life, right? We're constantly healing old wounds. And I think almost that's the beauty of life, is that we're constantly learning how to better ourselves. So let's go ahead. Let's dive in to this conversation. Again, if you are listening on Apple or Spotify or Google or any of the listening apps, thank you. If you want to see me with my wild and crazy hair, as is always, you can feel free to click the link in the show notes to come over and watch me on YouTube. These are now all recorded with video footage of me and my guests from the 100th episode on. So definitely come over and check us out there. Give me a follow, subscribe, so that you can always be notified that a new episode is out. So that if you are a visual person and you like seeing the visual and you also like to hear the audio, you can have the best of both worlds. So let's go ahead, like I said, and let's just dive in to this conversation, shall we? I think we shall. So, like I said, I'm going to talk about first the 6 different ways that your overthinking can impact your gut health. Okay. And I just want to start with overthinking it causes stress, right? And we know that stress can wreak havoc on our gut, but just overall our body. So, that stress can manifest into anxiety for some people and worry. And that can definitely upset our digestion. It can, for some people, stress is going to do one thing, while for others, stress is going to do something else. So by that, I mean, some people, stress causes them to be chronically constipated and to feel like they are in constant pain, and they have sluggish digestion, and which leads to bloating, while others, it might speed things up and it might cause diarrhea, making you have more frequent trips to the restroom. I know for me, it goes both ways. It depends on what the stressful situation is. If I'm stressed because of like a job interview, or I'm presenting something, it tends to speed up my digestion, and I tend to have diarrhea. However, if I'm chronically stressed from something else other than presenting or a job interview, it most likely for me ends up being more of the constipation route, because my body just kind of locks up, my digestion then therefore shuts down, and everything else ensues: the pain, the discomfort, the bloating, the constipation, you name it. So maybe you resonate with that, maybe you don't, but I just wanted to throw that out there because, it can go both ways. You can have a combination of the two, like I just shared with you. I often do. So we're going to dive in, like I said, to the 6 like biggest things that come from chronically overthinking. All right. So overthinking is going to lead to high blood pressure, which, that is going to cause us to not only have an increased risk of heart attack and stroke, but with that, it's going to cause high cholesterol, and that's going to potentially mean that it's leading us to unhealthy habits. Maybe you pick up something like smoking, or maybe you pick up drinking, or you're chronically reaching for processed sugars and sweets, and just processed packaged foods in general, which again, in moderation, when you pick out the better for you brands, it's okay, right? But if that's all we're eating, or that's all we're gravitating towards, and we're not gravitating towards those healthier foods that are going to nourish our body, from head to toe, that's something to be looked at, right? But again, with stress, with chronic overthinking leads to stress. Our body's going to naturally want and crave those other things, right? So it's learning to notice and address the warning signs, the triggers, the symptoms that you feel, and thinking about how we can, turn things around so that we're not, chronically reaching for those things. So the first thing is, that it could lead to high blood pressure, which again raises our risk for heart attack and stroke, high cholesterol, and then just from there, making poor choices with our nutrition and just overall health and wellness. The second thing would be that it can cause sleep problems. And we know that if we are not sleeping well, then we wake up groggy and, really cranky. And this just leads us to feeling like we're overall fatigued, right? I mean, we may start out okay at the beginning of our day, but by noon, we're dragging, right? Because we didn't get the proper amount of sleep that we need. As adults, we need anywhere between 7 to 8 hours, but sometimes even more. There are some people, God bless you, if you can function off of less than that. I know that there are people out there that can function off of 6 hours. That ain't me, but if it's you, you do you. But realistically thinking, we want to try to be shooting for 7 to 8 hours a night. And this is because that is our time for our bodies to rest, truly rest and digest, like finish up the digestion process, to renew ourselves, to regenerate, and to get our bodies ready for the next day. And, if we're not doing that, if we're not getting proper sleep, then we are going to be more likely to binge and overeat throughout the day, because then our body is producing more cortisol because we're stressed, right? And our blood sugar is spiking because we have not probably fed it properly, right? We're tired, so we're eating at all hours of the day. And this just leaves us feeling dysregulated, and our body, our digestion as such too. So that can then, like I said, can lead to overeating. It can lead us to feeling bloated and having gut distress, because we're constantly either shoveling food in because we're so dang hungry, and or it's leading to more triggers of stress. So that's something to think about too, is that, your overthinking can impact your sleep as well. That's why, and we'll talk about it here in the ways that we can support ourselves, but that's why, if you've got stuff on your mind and you can't get it off your mind and you're getting ready to go to bed, pull out a notepad, pull out a sticky note, and write it down so you can release it from your mind, and have time to really focus on getting that sound sleep. So the third thing would be, overthinking also can suppress our appetite. And you're probably thinking, well, gosh, that's probably a good thing, right? Because if I'm feeling chronically bloated all the time because of my overthinking, then hopefully that'll help to flatten out my stomach, right? Because it will decrease the bloating. And I see where you're going with that. But at the same time, if we're overthinking and it's suppressing our appetite, eventually you're going to bounce back. Eventually, if you have developed this under eating habit, eventually when you're not overthinking or you're not chronically stressed, you're going to come back to having this like voracious appetite where you want to eat a smorgasbord and more, because you have been depriving yourself for so long, and not intentionally, right? But it's just suppressing your appetite, and now you're back into a hopefully healthier state of mind. But that's bringing back all these cravings, right? You're like, I haven't had anything, and now here we go, I'm going to have all the things. So while I said at the beginning, you might not think it is a bad thing, and actually, it turns out to be not a great thing for your digestion in particular, because that suppression is going to lead to you yo-yoing later on down the line, when you feel less stressed and not so much in the fight or flight state. It's also going to, like I said, lead to weight fluctuations, of course, because of that yo-yoing, but it's going to disturb your hormones, right? And we know that our hormones are produced in our gut. And so, it could throw off your monthly cycle as well. So it really just has these far-reaching effects that, looking at it in just one aspect, you might think it's just a temporary thing. I'm not going to feel hungry. It might be a good thing, but it's actually, it has these far-reaching effects long term. So we've got to think about that, of course. The next thing, so number 4, would be that it impacts our brain. And again, you might be thinking, well, what? Well, we also know that the gut and the brain are intricately connected by that vagus nerve, right? And so this means that we're more prone to, if it's going to affect and impact our mental health, this means we might be more prone to developing something like depression and anxiety, right? Because if we're overthinking, we're chronically in that fight or flight state of being. And when we develop that depression and anxiety from these instances, it causes us to then, of course, not be able to digest properly. But also with that, we're not going to be storing and processing nutrients correctly, right? In some cases, we may be eating nutritious food when we're in this fight or flight state, but our body's not properly absorbing it and using it for the intended purpose. So it's really important that, we do check ourselves before we wreck ourselves, so to speak, because like I said, the brain is intricately connected with our gut. And if, we want to have a sound mind, body, and soul, we've got to make sure that our brain and our gut are working together. And so we got to make sure that we are in this calm state, this rest and digest state, so that we are not constantly being triggered into the fight or flight, where, it's going to impact our brain health as well as our gut health. And then the last two, the next one, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, but the next one would be that it affects, of course, our digestive system, which again, we know that, but it's going to potentially, if this is chronically happening, long-term, day in and day out, this stress, this overthinking, that's causing stress, can decrease the amount of blood flow and therefore oxygen to the stomach, which can cause a whole host of gastrointestinal issues, things like IBD, so inflammatory bowel disease, and irritable bowel syndrome, so IBS, which, there are so many people that go to the gastroenterologist and are diagnosed with that. And, it's no wonder, because we're all chronically stressed, right? And potentially overthinking too. So it absolutely does affect our gut and our gastrointestinal system. And so I just want you to realize that, by taking matters into our own hands and really focusing on our stress levels and really focusing on decreasing the overthinking, which we're going to get to here in a moment, you're going to do wonders for your overall health, but also specifically your gut too. Like, your gut is going to thank you 1,000 times over, I promise you. And again, I know this because that was me. I was there, and from time to time, I still am there. So, you never get over anything for good. There are always times where you potentially, take 5 steps forward and then a couple steps back. And so I just want you to know that it does work. Focusing on the mindset, the mental health piece does truly help your gut. And it's the most underrated piece, I believe, in the healing journey. So yeah. The last thing I want to share related to how overthinking impacts our gut, before we get into some tips for decreasing overthinking and to help you, of course, would be that it weakens the immune system. And we know that 70% of our immune system is housed in our gut, right? Which means that if your gut health is not sound, then you're going to be more prone to illness. You're going to be more prone to just getting sick in general. And so this is caused because when we are chronically stressed, we have higher cortisol levels, and that weakens our immune system, which makes us more prone to things like allergies and infections and diseases. So again, you can see that just causes us to be more at risk for so many more things when we are chronically stressed, because our immune system is everything, right? It allows us to be healthy, from the inside and out. And we could start to see symptoms of allergies with the rashes, right? Or, you could start to be more prone to the flu and other viruses and things, because your immune system is being attacked by the high stress that you are inflicting on your body. So just again, yet another reason why it's so important for us to be really tuning into our mental health and how we can get ourselves into a calmer state more often. Doesn't mean we're always going to be there, because stress is a natural part of our life, but it just means that we're focusing, we're making an intentional focus on pulling ourselves out of the flight and fight as much as we possibly can, and reducing situations in which we can avoid, that could cause us if we were involved in them or a part of them to be triggered into the fight or flight. So now we're getting to the best part of this conversation, which of course is where I'm going to share with you some tips for decreasing overthinking. So I just gave you 6 reasons why overthinking impacts our gut health. And I'm sorry if you heard a noise, it was not like a toot or gas. That was my foot rubbing up against my desk. Just thought I'd let you know in case you heard that. But we're going to talk about, so I shared 6 reasons why your overthinking can impact your gut health. And now we're going to talk about 6 tips, 6 suggestions that you can pull from and utilize to support the decrease of this overthinking, that so often plagues so many of us, including myself. So let's chat about those. All right. So the first one is keeping your mind and or body busy. So take up a hobby or, engage in meaningful conversation with friends, with family members. Get out and take a walk and listen to music. So that's my second one is, have a dance party, whether it's dancing in the streets. My girl Ashley, who will be on the podcast very soon here, talking to us about EFT and tapping. She does that, and I freaking love that. And I need to get out and just start dancing and letting everybody see me dance in the streets. But get out and dance, or dance in your room, dance in your closet, dance wherever you feel comfortable. But dancing is going to distract you. You're going to focus more on the music. You're going to focus more on your moves. If you dance in front of a mirror, you can focus on like, how do you look, doing the moves, like what makes you look super cool, right? You could lip sync to it. I mean, the options are endless, right? But those are going to help you, those things, right? So those first 2 things are going to help you moving your mind, moving your body, and are also keeping your mind busy by either, doing things or thinking about things. Maybe it's reading a book, talking with someone, having a, intellectual conversation with someone, and or not, right? Maybe it's just like a book club and you're just kind of like shooting the thing back and forth with each other. I mean, the options are endless there, but those would be the first 2. So keeping your mind busy or your body busy or both, and then having a dance party, playing some music, and just grooving out to it. The third thing would be to write it down. So like I talked about earlier in the episode, having a post-it note next to your bed, or just close by when you are doing things, so that if something comes to mind, you can write it down. Sometimes it's even helpful for me to put it in my phone. If I don't have a pad of paper and pen next to me, I just put it in my phone, take a screenshot of it or whatever, and then transfer it to paper if I need to later. So that could be, another option. Just save space in your brain for other things, so that you're not constantly, thinking about all these things at once. The fourth thing would be to share your worries, right? To have someone that you can go to have a conversation with, whether it be a best friend, a family member, a significant other, a coworker, whoever you trust. It could be all of the above, right? But to have someone or multiple people that you feel confident, you trust, and you feel comfortable going to share, what's on your mind, because it can be very helpful and very therapeutic for you to share what's on your mind to someone and, get it off your chest. So that you don't feel like you're carrying that burden all by yourself, right? Even, talking to a therapist and sharing that with them as well. I have utilized that approach as well. I talk about going to therapy from time to time as well. And that is definitely something that I've utilized in the past and in the present too. The next one would be to stay present, to not dwell on the past. I know it is very easy for us to say, oh, well, what if I would have done this? Or what if things would have been different? Well, yeah, what if? But you know what? Unless you know of some time machine that I'm not aware of, we don't have a way to go back in time, right? And as much as I'd love that for many reasons that I don't have time to share today, that's not going to happen, and So we need to be present and be focused on now, because the future is not guaranteed. We don't know what's going to happen in an hour from now, in a day from now, in a week from now, in a month from now, in a year from now, in 10 years from now. And so we may not even be here. So we need to truly live in the present and really focus on, what we can control right here and right now, because everything outside of that is not our business to try and wrap our brains around. Just take the moment as is, like at face value, like focus on the here and now. And I know, me being someone who constantly used to focus on the future or I would dwell on the past, it has brought me so much peace and so much more solitude to focus on the here and now, because one, obviously I'm just feeling so much more present, but I just feel like there's such less of a burden on my shoulders, right? Because I am just literally feeling the feels of the here and now and letting everything else take its course. And I think that is the best thing that we could ask for ourselves, is just to focus on the present. So that would be number 5. And the number 6 would be to exercise a breathing practice, right? Whether that be, meditating or just some mindful breathing. If you haven't listened to episode 105, which I talked about the book Breath, definitely I would check out that book. But then also in the show notes, if you go to the bottom of the show notes, we're kind of the midway through the show notes, I linked a really awesome guided breath work for you that's actually from the book itself. And it's my favorite breath, Tumo breath. So if you're interested in wanting to try that out, I think that would be a great option too. It's not challenging. You know me, I need basic, bare minimum, like easy stuff, because if it's too hard, I ain't going to do it. Right. And I think that speaks for most of us, right? If it's too complex, too challenging, we're not going to stick with it. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. And again, if meditating is not your thing, then like I said, just, you could even do some breathing practices while taking a walk. So, you can combine a lot of these things in and of themselves. So I think that's wonderful too. So that really is it. Before I let you go, I just want to remind you that we've got this incredible community called the Listening to Your Gut Facebook community over on, of course, Facebook. So please, if you're not with us over there, if you're not connected, please go join us, because we just had an epic class with my girl, Laura, a beam class, which is a breathwork, energy, and more session. And it was phenomenal. So if you didn't catch it live, go watch the replay and do the replay, because it's phenomenal. Also, this week is my last week of school. So Wednesday, the 24th is my last day of school. And then I have a teacher work day, the 25th. The 25th, so Thursday, I am going to be doing a live workout, pump up dance infused workout session in the podcast Facebook community, most likely at 7 or 8 p.m. that night. There will be a link here very shortly in the podcast Facebook community for that. So I have been doing that once a week, but now that I will be out of school, I'm going to be doing that twice a week on Thursdays and on Sunday mornings. So Thursday evening and Sunday morning. So hopefully you can catch one or both. But they're usually just 30 to 45 minutes. We do a full body workout. So definitely come catch that. And then I also do weekly Wellness Wednesday chats. So I will be chatting this week all about the exciting news that I have to share with you, that I am going to be creating, hosting, birthing into the world, all the things, a live health and wellness event in 2024. So super freaking stoked for that. More to come on that, both here on the podcast, as well as in the podcast Facebook community, as well as on Instagram. So buckle up, stay tuned for all of that. If you want to be in the know as well, I have weekly newsletters that go out. I'm sorry, not weekly, bi-weekly newsletters that go out that have a slew of information on how you can connect with me, how you can connect with other women in the community, helpful resources that you can read through and use to implement in your own life, as well as recipes, healthy recipes, because I'm all about that. And I know you love the recipes that I put out for you. So I'm happy to put those out in a newsletter as well. So that is that. But again, thank you as always for being here with me. And just remember, I am super blessed, super honored to be connected with you. I hope you have a fantastic start to your week. Let's freaking go. And I will chat with you soon.